So I have Richard here from the Kosher Council of Canada, and it'll be really interesting for our audience, Richard, if you can tell us about what you're doing here and what your organization does, and then we'll go into some more detail.
Okay, well, thanks for having me. So we are the Kosher Council of Canada, and what we do is certify products as kosher. So that's why we're Kosher Fest, because this is where the kosher action happens.
Of course.
Okay, so for a manufacturer to become kosher, basically every ingredient that goes into the product needs to be kosher. So that's one of the things that we're verifying. Every single ingredient needs to be logged with us and verified, and it's a kosher certificate.
Right.
And then the kosher process also needs to be kosher, so that could mean that the equipment that they're using can't be used for non-kosher.
Right.
And then we do audits periodically to confirm that what they're doing in real time is also what's happening in the computer system that they provide us with all the information.
Right. Do most of them have computer systems that can provide that information, or is it mostly hand captured?
No. We're in the new age.
Right.
And everything is done by a computer. So sometimes people are shocked to learn, for example, we certify Kellogg's, say cornflakes in Canada. So people are shocked to learn that there's not a rabbi living at the Kellogg's facility 24/7.
Sure.
What we do, Kellogg's will via our database online, virtually, submit to us if they have a new product that they want to certify. They'll say, okay, these are the 10 ingredients that are there. We'll check it. We'll say, good, verified, go ahead. And then, when the rabbi visits next month, he'll verify that everything is accurate.
Right. So some of our customers here in New York actually have a rabbi on site at the manufacturing operation, especially like, for example, frozen fish. And they need to, because of the complexity, and also because those fresh ingredients are they come from so many different suppliers, and sometimes you need eggs in a hurry. So where's it come from?
I think, Greg, we should hire you. You're good. You're getting to know all of the details of kosher.
No, I that's why I'm talking to you, because I don't. It's purely working with some people.
I was kind of talking about the simpler spectrum, but you're right. As it gets more complex, so there are things like cheese, wine, fish, meat. All of those require somebody permanent on staff who's there, a mashgiach, a rabbinic supervisor, who's there and who's making sure that everything that's happening is kosher. And I'll mention also restaurants and caterers. That's kind of another section of the market. Okay. And that is really intensive in terms of the kosher certification. So really, you always need a mashgiach, a kosher supervisor, on staff in what we call food service, those restaurants and caterers.
Right. I didn't know that. Okay. That's really interesting. And is there, if I'm an egg producer, for example, what do I have to do to have my eggs be kosher?
So you need to apply first, right? We need to have all of your information. We need to come and audit your facility, and to make sure that it's compliant with the kosher standards. And then after that, you give the kosher symbol, just as any kosher certifier would, and then maybe kosher.
Okay, so predominantly it's a standard, and it's a standard for health and safety, effectively, and obviously it's compliant in terms of the Jewish community.
Yeah, there's a lot of different people who rely on kosher who aren't necessarily Jewish, like me. So that's people are surprised to learn that. But you mentioned food safety standards. People like to see that there's a different set of eyes who are watching this process. Right. So, they've done marketing surveys that show that, only a small percentage of people who consider themselves kosher consumers are actually Jewish. So who are those other people? People who are looking for health and safety, maybe they're vegetarians or vegans or different religious faiths. There's a whole group of people who say, this kosher certification is a high standard. Right.
It's fascinating because compliance in the food industry is such a high requirement in any operation, and the kosher stamp really brings almost an additional layer on top of that. We've sort of do some inspections around HACCP, hazardous control, critical control points, things like that, and where the reporting that comes out of a system, for example, says this is what I inspected, this is what I did, but the fascinating thing about a kosher manufacturing operation is that oversight that you bring in terms of the certifications, and then the person on site brings.
You're right about that, and I would actually go a step further. I would say that kosher and these HACCP programs work together really well, because we see that a HACCP program is keeping a company well organized.
Yes.
Right? They have a protocol for their ingredient intake or recalls or whatever it is, and then kosher can kind of be integrated into that.
Okay.
And so they work together really well.
Right. Do you have a sort of published set of standards on that?
Yeah, we do.
Okay.
We have a set of standards, and in fact, we also have manuals that integrate kosher into SQF and BRC. These are two of the common HACCP standards that companies use.
Okay.
So then, let's say a food safety professional can say, oh, okay, I'm comfortable with BRC and I know what to do, and this manual integrates kosher together with it so that kosher and their food safety program can work together.
Okay, interesting. So what would a company or let's say take my egg producer example have to do? Where do they start? Do they start with coming to an organization like yourself, or do they start with getting the manuals and starting to put the process in place first?
Yeah, I think it's best to contact us first, only because situations are different, right? So a manufacturer like we talked about, who's doing meat or fish or cheese or wine, is a very different standard than our egg manufacturer.
Okay.
So always best to come to us first, and then we really walk the companies through and help them and customize it a little bit. Even though we have our protocols, it's always best to work together to customize it.
Okay. Now you're based out of Toronto in Canada. Do you have local representatives all over the world, or how do you actually engage with your customers?
Yeah. So because we certify around the world, I mean, the majority of the products we certify here in Canada. We also certify a big chunk around the world. And oftentimes somebody from our head office will visit, and then there's a local representative who will kind of go from there and then report back to us at the head office. That's usually the way it works.
That's fascinating. Thank you for coming on. But I've known about the kosher market, and in fact, one of our customers is Quality Frozen Foods, and they have an entire program around kosher for Passover and the separation of the product in the warehouse, for example. But you've given me a different level of understanding of the kosher market and what the requirements are.
That's my gift to you today, Craig.
I really appreciate you coming on. Thanks for that.
My pleasure. Nice meeting you.
Which is great. Thank you very much.